how to eliminate self-doubt forever, the power of your unconscious mind. Why listen? Grow sleep. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, looking in the mirror and seeing someone who is completely free from the crippling weight of self-doubt. Imagine making decisions quickly and confidently, without that nagging voice questioning your every move. Imagine pursuing your deepest dreams and ambitions without constantly wondering if you're good enough, smart enough, or deserving enough. Why is it that some people seem naturally confident while others are plagued by constant self-doubt? Why do brilliant, capable individuals often feel like imposters about to be exposed? And why is it that no matter how many positive affirmations we repeat, how many accomplishments we achieve, or how much external validation we receive, for many of us, that voice of self-doubt continues to whisper, or sometimes shout, that we're simply not enough? One thing we do know is that it's not about lack of information or strategies. We live in an age where self-help books flood the market, where personal development courses are just a click away, and where inspirational quotes fill our social media feeds. Yet despite all this knowledge at our fingertips, self-doubt remains one of the most persistent barriers to human potential. You see, there are people who have overcome tremendous obstacles, people who had every reason to doubt themselves, yet somehow forged unshakable confidence that carried them to extraordinary heights. People like Maya Angelou, who despite her immense success, battled imposter syndrome throughout her career. Or Richard Branson, who struggled with dyslexia yet built a global empire. Or even Oprah Winfrey, who rose from poverty and abuse to become one of the most influential people in the world. For a masterclass in eliminating self-doubt, study the lives of those who refused to let their inner critic define their destiny. They discovered a profound truth, that the power to eliminate self-doubt forever doesn't lie in external achievements or validation, but in understanding and harnessing the immense power of your unconscious mind. As human beings, we operate with two distinct parts of ourselves constantly at odds with each other. Our nervous system is hardwired for comfort and safety, while our essence, some might call it our soul, is hardwired for growth and expansion. It's managing that dynamic tension between the comfort zone and our potential that causes frustration for most people and keeps them trapped in cycles of self-doubt and mediocrity. You're listening to How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever, the power of your unconscious mind by Listen. Grow sleep. Let's continue our journey toward unshakable confidence and self-belief. Chapter 1. The Origins of Self-Doubt. What if I told you that your self-doubt isn't actually yours? That the critical voice in your head, the one that questions your abilities, your worthiness, your potential, was installed there like software on a computer during your formative years? The truth is, no child is born doubting themselves. Watch any toddler learning to walk. They fall, they get up, they fall again, without a moment of hesitation or self-criticism. They don't think, maybe walking isn't for me, or I'm just not good at this balance thing. They simply keep trying, completely free from the burden of self-doubt. So what happens? How do we go from that natural state of confident persistence to the crippling self-doubt that plagues so many adults? Let's look at the human brain. What separates us from most of the animal kingdom is the front part of our brain, once known as the neocortex or frontal lobe. This magnificent structure operates primarily at brainwave frequencies of alpha or beta. But here's something fascinating. This part of the brain doesn't fully activate until we're about 7 years old. Young children operate primarily in theta and delta brainwaves, which explains why babies sleep so much and why kids live in that magical fantasy world where critical thinking isn't yet developed. It also means that children are incredibly impressionable, which is why Aristotle famously said, "Give me a child until he is 7, and I will show you the man." During these formative years, when our critical thinking isn't yet online, we absorb programming directly into our unconscious mind like a sponge soaking up water. We internalize the judgments, criticisms, and limiting beliefs of those around us, parents, teachers, siblings, or anyone significant in our young lives. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. Imagine a scenario where a father takes his young son shopping. Dad is stressed about bills, worried about his job security and still recovering from an argument with his wife that morning. While at the checkout, his son sees a toy and naturally asks for it. "Daddy, can I have that toy? Please, please, please." The father, already overwhelmed by his adult concerns, snaps in frustration. "No! You can't have it. You don't deserve it. You haven't been good enough today." In that moment, something profound happens. The child doesn't hear his father's stress or understand the context. What he absorbs directly into his unconscious mind is something far more damaging. "I'm not good enough. I don't deserve good things." This single moment plants a seed of self-doubt that may grow and shape this child's relationship with himself for decades to come. This isn't about blaming parents. They're doing their best, often unaware of how their words are being processed by a child's developing mind. It's about understanding how these early experiences form the foundation of our self-perception. After thousands of hours working with people from all walks of life, I've discovered what I believe is the undisputed first law of personal growth. People will never rise above the opinion they hold of themselves. And that opinion is largely formed in childhood before the age of 7, from how we perceived we did or didn't receive love from those most important to us. Now here's where it gets interesting. We're also creatures of habit. Our prefrontal cortex, that magnificent thinking brain, is prime real estate. It makes up just 2% of our body weight, but consumes 20% of our energy. Because of this, our brain is constantly looking for shortcuts. When you perform an action repeatedly, your brain says, "Hey, you seem to be doing this a lot. Let's make it automatic so you don't have to think about it." This is incredibly useful for things like walking or driving. Can you imagine if you had to consciously think about every muscle movement required to walk? But it creates a serious problem when it comes to self-doubt. Each time you think, "I'm not good enough," or hesitate because of fear of judgment, your brain strengthens that neural pathway. Eventually, self-doubt becomes your default response. Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. It becomes a habit, operating below the level of conscious awareness. This explains why affirmations and positive thinking often fail to create lasting change. You're attempting to reprogram your conscious mind, but self-doubt operates from your unconscious. That elephant we talked about earlier that's carrying your ant-sized conscious mind. You're listening to How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever. The Power of Your Unconscious Mind by Listen. Grow Sleep. Let's continue our journey toward unshakable confidence and self-belief. Chapter 2. The Magnetic North of Your Mind. Imagine holding a compass in your hand. No matter how much you twist and turn, once you release your grip, the needle always returns to pointing north. Your mind works in a remarkably similar way. You can temporarily direct your thoughts through conscious effort, but when you relax that control, your thinking naturally gravitates towards your default pattern, what I call your magnetic north. For most people, unfortunately, this magnetic north tends to be negative rather than positive. And this isn't your fault. It's the result of two powerful forces: your early programming and your brain's natural negativity bias. Let me share a powerful insight I learned from a championship soccer coach. When parents would ask him what he looked for in players, they typically brag about their child's vision on the field, their speed, or their powerful left foot. His response always surprised them. "Those are the last things I'm looking for. The most important thing, self-confidence." He defined self-confidence as the ability or belief to believe in yourself to accomplish any task, no matter the odds, no matter the difficulty, no matter the adversity. And here's what's crucial. He intentionally used the word skill when describing self-confidence because he firmly believed it could be trained and developed, just like any other skill. This perspective aligns perfectly with what we know about the brain's neuroplasticity. Self-doubt isn't a permanent state or an unchangeable personality trait. It's simply your current default setting, your current magnetic north. And just like any skill, with the right training and consistency, you can reorient this compass. Let's talk about this negativity bias. Evolutionarily speaking, it served us well. Our ancestors, who were hyper-vigilant about potential threats, who noticed every rustle in the grass that might be a predator, were the ones who survived long enough to become our ancestors. The optimists who assumed everything was fine might have made a lovely meal for a saber-toothed tiger. This ancient survival mechanism still operates in your modern brain. It's why one negative comment can outweigh 10 positive ones. It's why you might ruminate for hours over a small mistake while barely acknowledging your successes. And it's one reason why self-doubt feels so natural, while self-confidence can feel like swimming upstream. This default setting doesn't just affect how you feel, it influences virtually every decision you make. Think about the last time you faced a significant choice. Perhaps you were considering applying for a promotion, starting a business, or pursuing a new relationship. If your magnetic north is oriented towards self-doubt, your unconscious mind immediately begins generating reasons why you might fail. They'll probably hire someone with more experience, or most new businesses fail in the first year, or why would that person be interested in someone like me? These thoughts don't feel like choices, they feel like reality. That's the insidious power of your magnetic north. It presents its perspective as the truth, rather than as one possible interpretation. What's fascinating is how this magnetic pull operates differently across various life domains. You might have strong confidence in your professional abilities, but profound self-doubt in romantic relationships. Or you might trust your intelligence, but doubt your creativity. This domain-specific confidence reveals something crucial. Magnetic north isn't a singular force, but a complex network of default settings, each programmed through different experiences and reinforced through different feedback loops. I worked with a brilliant surgeon who could perform complex procedures with complete confidence, but froze with self-doubt when speaking to groups larger than 5 people. His professional training had created a strong, positive magnetic north in the operating room, while childhood experiences of being laughed at during a school presentation had established an equally powerful negative pull when it came to public speaking. But here's the good news. While you can't eliminate this negativity bias completely, you can reprogram your magnetic north. You can change the default direction your thoughts travel when you're not actively controlling them. The process begins with awareness. Most people are so accustomed to their default patterns that they don't even recognize them as patterns. They simply experience them as reality. The first step in changing your magnetic north is to start noticing when it's operating. When you catch yourself thinking, I could never do that, or that wouldn't work for someone like me, pause and recognize. That's my negative magnetic north talking. It feels true because it's familiar, not because it is true. This awareness creates a crucial gap between stimulus and response. Without it, your default patterns run on autopilot. With it, you gain the power to choose a different interpretation. Think about the most confident person you know, someone who genuinely believes in themselves. They aren't immune to self-doubt, they simply have a different default setting. When they face challenges or setbacks, their mind naturally gravitates toward thoughts like, I can figure this out, or this is an opportunity to learn, rather than, I can't do this, or I'll probably fail. I've studied these naturally confident individuals extensively, and I've noticed something fascinating. They don't necessarily have more skills, intelligence, or resources than others. What they have is a different set of default interpretations. When they succeed, they attribute it to their abilities and efforts. When they fail, they attribute it to specific circumstances that can be analysed and addressed. This pattern, taking ownership of successes while viewing failures as temporary and specific, creates a powerful positive feedback loop that continuously strengthens their confidence. Contrast this with how someone with a negative magnetic north typically processes the same events. When they succeed, they attribute it to luck or external factors. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. When they fail, they attribute it to permanent personal inadequacies. I'm just not good enough. This pattern creates an equally powerful negative feedback loop that deepens self-doubt with each experience. The key difference isn't that they never experience self-doubt, it's that self-doubt isn't their magnetic north. It's a temporary visitor rather than a permanent resident in their mental landscape. That championship soccer coach I mentioned earlier shared a perfect example of this. he talked about his son, who wasn't the most naturally talented athlete. After games, he'd ask his son how it went, and the boy would enthusiastically respond, "Great! I scored 3 goals and got 2 assists." The coach would think to himself, "I didn't even see him touch the puck." But his son had his own interpretation of how he did. That's what naturally confident people do. They interpret feedback in ways that serve them rather than diminish them. Where others might see failure or inadequacy, they see opportunity and growth. This isn't about delusion. It's about choosing which aspects of reality to focus on and how to interpret them. Trauma and significant negative experiences can entrench your negative magnetic north even more deeply. When you experience something painful or frightening, your brain creates strong neural pathways to help you avoid similar situations in the future. This is a survival mechanism, but it often leads to overgeneralization. One rejection can lead to a lifetime of avoiding vulnerability. One failure can convince you never to take risks again. Understanding this mechanism is crucial because it explains why some patterns of self-doubt seem so resistant to change. These aren't just habits. They're your brain's misguided attempts to protect you from perceived threats. Recognizing this can help you approach your negative patterns with compassion rather than frustration. So how do you change your magnetic north? It starts with understanding another crucial aspect of how your mind works. Your brain doesn't actually know the difference between what you vividly imagine and what you've actually experienced. This neurological fact has been demonstrated repeatedly in laboratory settings. When subjects vividly imagine performing a physical activity, the same motor neurons fire as when they actually perform the activity. When they imagine emotional scenarios, their bodies produce the same chemical responses as they would in real situations. This explains why you can feel genuine fear while watching a horror movie, even though you know it's not real. It's why visualization techniques are used by elite athletes and why nightmares can leave you with a racing heart and sweaty palms. The implications for reprogramming your magnetic north are profound. Through deliberate mental rehearsal, you can create new neural pathways that eventually become your default settings. Your brain records these vivid mental experiences as if they actually happened, gradually shifting your unconscious expectations. You can leverage this fact to begin reprogramming your unconscious mind. When you repeatedly imagine yourself succeeding, feeling confident, and overcoming challenges, your brain begins to register these as real experiences. Over time, these new experiences help shift your magnetic north. Let me share a powerful example of this principle in action. That same soccer coach once recruited a goalkeeper from Colombia who had incredible raw talent, but struggled with a specific technical issue. His hands were like stone, and he couldn't catch the ball consistently. Rather than focusing on the deficit, the coach gave him a simple repetition exercise. Kick a ball against a wall and catch it. The goal: 350 repetitions every day for 8 months. When the goalkeeper returned after those 8 months, his hands were calloused, the moisture on his hands gone from the constant friction. But his skill had transformed so dramatically that he eventually went on to play professionally in Europe. Was it magic? Number, it was repetition. Repetition, repetition. The problem is, most of us bail after the first bit of failure or adversity. We expect to be self-confident without putting in the necessary practice to make the skill second nature. True confidence comes when we've done something so many times that we can say, "I've done this 1,000 times before." It's like the difference between giving your first public speech versus your 100th. The nervousness diminishes with each repetition as your unconscious mind registers more and more evidence of your capability. Let me share another example from my work with a client, a talented writer paralyzed by self-doubt whenever she tried to submit her work for publication. Her magnetic north was so strongly oriented toward anticipating rejection that she had dozens of completed manuscripts gathering dust on her hard drive. We began with a simple visualization practice. Each morning, she would spend 5 minutes vividly imagining receiving positive feedback on her writing. She would feel the emotions, hear the specific words of praise, and see the impact of her work on readers. She would then spend another 5 minutes imagining herself calmly submitting her work, feeling a sense of detachment from the outcome, confident in the value of her contribution, regardless of any individual's response. After 3 weeks of this practice, she submitted her first piece. When I asked what changed, she said something remarkable. It doesn't feel like the first time anymore. In my mind, I've already done this successfully dozens of times. Her magnetic north had begun to shift. Another powerful technique for shifting your magnetic north is what that championship coach called self-talk. We all have these tapes that play in our head, most often negative ones. When trying on pants, many women immediately think, I look fat in these, while men often think, I have no muscle. In professional settings, it might be, please don't call on me, I don't know the answer, or I hope they don't ask me about this, I'll look stupid. The coach rightly points out that there are enough people in the world telling us we can't do it or that we're not good enough. Why would we want to add our own voice to that chorus? Just as Muhammad Ali constantly declared, I am the greatest, we need our own powerful self-affirmations. These aren't just empty words, they're deliberate programming instructions for your unconscious mind. The coach used a powerful affirmation, I am the captain of my ship and the master of my fate. He would repeat this during quiet moments while brushing his teeth during his morning routine. These private declarations are not about boasting or false pride, they're about programming your default thought patterns when no one else is listening. One especially effective technique is what the coach called a self-confidence letter, a document you write to yourself when you're feeling good, listing your accomplishments, strengths, and the things you're proud of. When his confidence was low after taking a challenging new job, he pulled out this letter and read it daily for 2 weeks to weather the storm. It was his own brag sheet, reminding him of his capabilities when his default magnetic north was pulling toward doubt. This isn't about deluding yourself or ignoring real challenges. It's about giving your brain new evidence that challenges the old programming of self-doubt. Each time you consciously direct your thoughts toward confidence and capability, you're weakening the pull of that negative magnetic north. The power of this approach is that it works with your brain's natural functioning rather than against it. You're not trying to force your unconscious mind to ignore its programming. You're giving it new programming through the same mechanisms that created the original patterns. But there's another factor we need to address, one that's perhaps even more powerful than visualization or conscious thought control, and that's your environment. You're listening to How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever, the power of your unconscious mind by Listen, Grow Sleep. Let's continue our journey toward unshakable confidence and self-belief. Chapter 3, Environment Trumps Willpower. Here's a truth you might want to tattoo on the inside of your eyelids. Environment trumps willpower every time. What do I mean by that? Simply this. Your intention will always be beaten by your environment over time. Imagine you decide to improve your confidence through positive affirmations. Every morning you look in the mirror and say, I am worthy, I am capable, I believe in myself. That's a great start. But if you then spend your day surrounded by people who constantly remind you of your failures, doubt your abilities, or undermine your worth, guess which influence will win in the long run? We are incredibly adaptable creatures. We don't get to choose whether or not we adapt to our environment. We only get to choose what environment we adapt to. Let me share a simple example. Imagine you hate jazz music. You're more of a country music fan, but your car breaks down, and for the next week, you catch a ride with a colleague who's a jazz enthusiast. For 45 minutes each way, you're immersed in jazz. And what happens by the end of the week? Whether you want to admit it or not, you'll likely find yourself tapping your foot to the rhythm, maybe even humming a tune in the shower. This isn't about having weak willpower, it's about being human. We absorb and adapt to our surroundings at a level far deeper than conscious choice. The implications for self-doubt are profound. You can have all the intention in the world to feel more confident, but if you live in an environment that constantly reinforces your doubts, whether through critical people, negative media consumption, or even physical spaces that remind you of past failures, the environment will eventually win. This principle extends to the social environment as well. There's a powerful phenomenon called the law of conformity, which suggests that you will eventually become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you surround yourself with self-doubters, guess what you'll become? but surround yourself with confident individuals who believe in their capabilities and see possibilities rather than limitations, and you'll naturally begin to adopt those same traits. That championship soccer coach I mentioned earlier understood this principle deeply. One of the most powerful ways he built confidence in his players wasn't through constant correction of their mistakes, but through something much more subtle and effective. Instead of focusing on what players did wrong, "Johnny, you need to bend your knee more, follow through better," he would find someone who was executing the skill correctly and praise them specifically. "Great goal, Frida. I love how you kept your knee low, followed through, and landed like this." The result? Johnny wasn't demoralized, his confidence wasn't shot, and Frida's confidence was strengthened. Johnny could observe and learn without feeling criticized. The coach called this simple but powerful technique, "catch them when they're good." This approach was validated by a remarkable study at Kansas State. Researchers compared two methods of using video feedback with athletes. The traditional approach showed team members their mistakes during plays that resulted in failure, pointing out what they needed to correct. The experimental approach ignored those mistakes entirely and instead showed players only the moments when they executed perfectly. The results were astonishing. While both groups improved, the team that saw only their successes, the times they did it right, improved at a dramatically faster rate. This completely revolutionized coaching methodologies, and it has profound implications for how we can build environments that naturally foster confidence rather than doubt. I remember working with a client, let's call her Emma, who had tried everything to overcome her self-doubt. Affirmations, therapy, self-help books, you name it, she'd tried it. Yet nothing seemed to create lasting change. When we examined her environment, the problem became clear. She worked in a highly competitive office where colleagues regularly undermined each other to get ahead. Her roommate was constantly complaining about life and engaging in negative self-talk. Even her social media feeds were filled with perfectly curated images that made her feel inadequate. No wonder her efforts weren't working. Her environment was completely misaligned with her goal of building confidence. We set about changing her environment systematically. She couldn't immediately change jobs, but she could create a confidence corner in her workspace filled with reminders of her achievements. She started spending less time with her negative roommate and joined a community volunteer group where people were supportive and positive. She did a social media cleanse, unfollowing accounts that triggered her insecurities and following those that inspired genuine confidence. Within 3 months, Emma's confidence had transformed, not because she tried harder with her affirmations, but because she changed the environment that was shaping her unconscious mind. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, but I can't change my environment. I can't choose a new family or immediately get a new job. That's valid. Complete environmental change isn't always possible, but partial change is always within your control. You can create physical spaces that reinforce confidence rather than doubt. Carefully choose what media you consume. Set boundaries with negative people, even if you can't eliminate them completely. Seek out new communities that foster the mindset you want to develop. Use technology to curate what messages reach your unconscious mind. Remember, every aspect of your environment is either feeding your self-doubt or starving it. There is no neutral. That book you're reading, the podcasts you listen to, the social media accounts you follow, the conversations you engage in, all are programming your unconscious mind in one direction or another. You're listening to How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever, the power of your unconscious mind by Listen. Grow Sleep. Let's continue our journey toward unshakable confidence and self-belief. Chapter 4, The 3 Empowering Shifts. Now that you understand how self-doubt is installed, how it becomes your mental default setting, and how your environment reinforces it, let's focus on the solution. I'm going to share 3 powerful shifts that will transform your relationship with self-doubt forever. Shift number 1, stop putting the wrong things in. As we've established, your unconscious mind is constantly being programmed, not just by your thoughts, but by everything you're exposed to. The first shift is simple but profound. Stop putting the wrong programming in. What does this mean practically? Let's start with the media you consume. The mainstream media operates primarily by stimulating the amygdala, the fear center of your brain. Why? Because fear captures attention, and attention sells advertising. The media isn't a charity, it's a business designed to keep you watching, reading, and clicking. I haven't watched a news report or read a newspaper for the past 17 years. Some people find that shocking. How do you know what's going on in the world? They ask. My response is always the same. A better question would be, what do you want to choose to focus on? Think of the Amazon rainforest at night. Everything is happening simultaneously. Beautiful, ugly, miraculous, and terrifying. The media hands you a flashlight and directed your attention to the snake eating the rat. But what if you chose to point your light at the hummingbird being born instead? Both are happening. The choice is where you direct your attention. The same principle applies to social media and entertainment. Every scroll, every show, every video you watch is either reinforcing your self-doubt or building your confidence. There is no neutral consumption, but it's not just media, it's also the people around you. While you can't always choose your family, you can choose how much of their programming you accept. As the saying goes, love your family, choose your friends. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they constantly expressing self-doubt, focusing on limitations, and reinforcing a negative worldview? Or do they believe in possibilities, support your growth, and hold up a mirror to your greatness? This isn't about judgment, it's about conscious choice. Shift number 2, start putting the right things in. Nature abhors a vacuum. It's not enough to remove negative influences, you must actively replace them with positive ones. This is where you begin the reprogramming process. We live in an age of unprecedented access to wisdom, inspiration, and transformative ideas. Whether through books, podcasts, online courses, or meaningful conversations, you have infinite opportunities to feed your mind with programming that builds confidence rather than doubt. Make it a daily practice to expose yourself to ideas, stories, and perspectives that reinforce your worthiness and capability. This isn't about toxic positivity or ignoring reality. It's about counterbalancing the natural negativity bias we discussed earlier. I recommend creating what I call a confidence curriculum, a personalized collection of resources that specifically address your unique patterns of self-doubt. This might include biographies of people who've overcome similar challenges, specific podcasts that strengthen your sense of possibility, or courses that build skills in areas where you feel insecure. For instance, if you doubt your intelligence, immerse yourself in stories of late bloomers who discovered their genius in unconventional ways. If you question your creativity, study the processes of great creators who struggled with the same doubts. If you fear public judgment, learn from those who have weathered criticism and emerged stronger. The key is consistency. Brief exposure to confidence-building content won't override years of negative programming. But daily engagement with the right content will gradually shift your unconscious beliefs. Shift number 3. Get the things that shouldn't be in there out. The first 2 shifts address present and future programming. But what about the negative programming that's already embedded in your unconscious mind? Those limiting beliefs installed long ago that continue to generate self-doubt? This is where the third shift comes in. Actively removing programming that no longer serves you. This shift often requires skilled guidance, a coach, therapist, or mentor who understands how to access and reprogram the unconscious mind. Traditional talk therapy or self-analysis has limitations here because you're using the conscious mind to try to solve an unconscious problem. It's like trying to repair the boat's engine while you're rowing. You simply can't access what needs fixing from your current position. Instead, you need approaches that can bypass the conscious mind and directly access unconscious programming. Techniques like specific types of hypnotherapy, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, certain NLP, neuro-linguistic programming protocols, and specialized coaching methodologies can be remarkably effective for this purpose. I recall working with a client who wanted help with time management. Within minutes, it became clear that time management wasn't his real issue. His inability to say no was. and that stemmed from a deep-seated fear of rejection. Rather than giving him time management techniques, we addressed the unconscious pattern driving his behavior. Once that was resolved, his time management problems disappeared naturally. This illustrates an important point. Self-doubt often manifests as other issues: procrastination, perfectionism, people-pleasing, or imposter syndrome. Treating these symptoms without addressing the root cause is like taking painkillers for a broken leg. You might feel temporarily better, but the underlying problem remains. When you combine these three shifts, stopping the wrong input, starting the right input, and removing outdated programming, you create a comprehensive approach to eliminating self-doubt at its source. You're listening to How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever, the Power of Your Unconscious Mind, by Listen. Grow Sleep. Let's continue our journey toward unshakable confidence and self-belief. Chapter 5. Reprogramming Your Reality. Now that you understand the three fundamental shifts, let's explore specific techniques to reprogram your unconscious mind for unshakable confidence. Remember, we're not just trying to manage self-doubt, we're working to eliminate it at its source. The spotlight technique. Your unconscious mind doesn't process negation well. When you tell yourself, don't be nervous, or stop doubting yourself, your mind actually reinforces the very state you're trying to avoid. It's like saying, don't think of a pink elephant. What immediately comes to mind? A pink elephant, of course. Instead, use what I call the spotlight technique. Rather than fighting against what you don't want, shine your mental spotlight directly on what you do want. Replace, I don't want to feel doubtful, with, I choose to feel confident. Replace, I hope I don't mess up, with, I'm prepared and capable. This isn't just positive thinking. It's strategic language that aligns with how your unconscious mind actually processes information. Your unconscious can't move away from something. It can only move toward something. One client used this technique for 4 job interviews, a situation that previously triggered intense self-doubt. Instead of repeating, I won't be nervous, which kept nervousness in focus, she switched to, I'll remain calm, clear, and engaging. The difference in her experience was immediate and profound. The identity upgrade. Many approaches to building confidence focus on changing behaviors or acquiring new skills. These have their place, but they often miss a crucial truth. The most powerful change happens at the level of identity. Consider the difference between these two statements. I'm trying to be more confident. Behavior. I am a confident person. Identity. The first implies struggle and distance from your goal. The second claims the quality as an intrinsic part of who you are. Your unconscious mind will always align your behaviors with your sense of identity. Change the identity and the behaviors follow naturally. Let me share a remarkable transformation I witnessed with a client who was a talented software engineer. Michael had spent years trying to overcome his crippling imposter syndrome. Despite his technical brilliance, he constantly worried he would be found out and exposed as a fraud. His behavior-focused approach, trying to learn more, working longer hours, seeking endless certifications, only reinforced his underlying belief that he wasn't inherently good enough. Our breakthrough came when we shifted to an identity-based approach. Instead of trying to fix his imposter syndrome through external validation, we worked on upgrading his core identity. He began introducing himself as a naturally innovative problem solver rather than just a programmer. He created a morning ritual where he would stand in front of the mirror and state with conviction, I am a valuable contributor whose unique perspective enhances every project I touch. The change didn't happen overnight, but within 3 months, something profound shifted. During a high-stakes meeting where a critical system had failed, Michael found himself spontaneously taking leadership, something he would have avoided at all costs before. When I asked what had changed, his response was illuminating. I didn't consciously decide to step up. It just felt like the natural thing to do, because that's who I am now. This is the power of identity-based change. When Michael was trying to act more confidently, he had to constantly remember and decide to behave differently. But when he upgraded his identity, confident behavior became his default setting, requiring no conscious effort or decision-making in the moment. What I find most fascinating about identity-based transformation is how it eventually rewrites your personal history. 6 months into his identity upgrade, Michael began recalling past successes differently, remembering instances where he had shown leadership and innovation that he'd previously discounted or forgotten entirely. His brain was literally reorganizing his memories to align with his new identity, creating a virtuous cycle of increasing confidence. To implement the identity upgrade, start consciously describing yourself with the qualities you want to embody. This isn't about lying to yourself, it's about claiming the truth of who you're becoming. Even if you don't feel fully confident yet, you can truthfully say, I'm a person who's developing unshakable confidence, or I'm someone who grows more confident every day. Pay particular attention to how you complete the sentence, I am. These are among the most powerful words in your vocabulary when it comes to programming your unconscious mind. The certainty anchor. Have you ever noticed that self-doubt often manifests physically? Perhaps your stomach tightens, your breathing becomes shallow, or your shoulders tense. These physiological states then reinforce the mental experience of doubt, creating a negative feedback loop. The certainty anchor technique breaks this loop by deliberately associating a specific physical trigger with a state of complete confidence. Here's how it works. First, recall a time when you felt absolutely certain about something, a moment when you knew beyond any doubt that you were right or capable. Perhaps it was a skill you mastered, a test you aced, or a situation you handled perfectly. Fully re-experience that moment, noticing how certainty feels in your body. While in this state, create a physical trigger, perhaps pressing your thumb and middle finger together, touching a specific spot on your wrist, or adopting a particular posture. Hold this trigger while intensifying the feeling of certainty. Repeat this process daily, strengthening the association between the physical trigger and the feeling of certainty. Eventually, activating the trigger will automatically evoke the state of certainty, even in situations that previously triggered doubt. One executive I worked with used this technique before high-stakes presentations. By activating her certainty anchor, she could instantly shift from self-doubt to a state of calm confidence, regardless of external circumstances. The reality rehearsal. Your unconscious mind doesn't distinguish well between vividly imagined experiences and actual ones. This means mental rehearsal can be nearly as effective as physical practice for building confidence and eliminating doubt. The reality rehearsal technique involves mentally experiencing future scenarios with complete confidence, effectively giving your brain memories from the future that contradict patterns of self-doubt. Unlike basic visualization, reality rehearsal engages all your senses and incorporates realistic challenges. Rather than just seeing yourself succeeding, you mentally experience the entire process, including obstacles, while maintaining your confidence. For example, if you have a job interview coming up, don't just visualize getting the job. Mentally rehearse arriving at the building, waiting in the reception area, meeting the interviewer, answering difficult questions, handling moments of uncertainty, all while maintaining a state of calm confidence. Include sensory details. What does the room look like? What sounds do you hear? What does the chair feel like? The more vivid and multisensory your rehearsal, the more powerfully it programs your unconscious mind. The most effective reality rehearsals include multisensory experience, sight, sound, feeling, even taste and smell. Realistic challenges, not just perfect scenarios. Emotional states, how it feels to be confident even when tested. Physical sensations, how confidence manifests in your body. Regular practice of this technique creates new neural pathways that make confidence your default state, even in situations that previously triggered doubt. You're listening to How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever, the power of your unconscious mind by Listen. Grow sleep. Let's continue our journey toward unshakable confidence and self-belief. Chapter 6. The Feedback Loop Revolution. We've talked extensively about how your unconscious mind gets programmed, but there's another crucial element we need to address: the ongoing feedback loop that either reinforces or eliminates self-doubt. Every action you take or don't take provides feedback to your unconscious mind, creating a self-reinforcing cycle that either builds confidence or deepens doubt. The confidence action cycle. Confidence and action exist in a reciprocal relationship. Conventional wisdom suggests that confidence leads to action. When you feel confident, you take bigger steps towards your goals. While this is true, the reverse is equally powerful. Action builds confidence. Each time you act, despite feeling doubt, you provide your unconscious mind with new evidence that contradicts your limiting beliefs. This creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, a mental discomfort that arises when your actions don't align with your beliefs. To resolve this discomfort, your mind must either 1. Discount the action, it was just luck, or anyone could have done that. 2. Update the belief, maybe I'm more capable than I thought. Most people with self-doubt habitually choose the first option, dismissing their successes and reinforcing their negative self-perception. But with awareness, you can consciously choose the second option, using each action as evidence to update your self-concept. This is why the strategy of act as if is so powerful. When you act as if you're already confident, making the phone call, speaking up in the meeting, applying for the promotion, you force your unconscious mind to reconsider its programming. The micro-win strategy. One of the most effective ways to leverage the confidence action cycle is through what I call micro-wins. These are small, achievable actions that 1. Push slightly beyond your comfort zone. 2. Can be completed relatively quickly. 3. Provide immediate evidence against your self-doubt. The key is to start small enough that your fear can't reasonably object, but meaningful enough that completing the action challenges your limiting beliefs. Let me share a powerful example of how this strategy created a life-changing transformation for a woman named Sophia. When I first met her, Sophia had a dream of starting her own business, but was paralyzed by such intense self-doubt that she hadn't taken a single concrete step toward her goal in 3 years. Each time she considered moving forward, her mind flooded with overwhelming questions. How would she get clients? What if nobody took her seriously? What about health insurance and retirement plans? What if she invested everything and still failed? Rather than trying to address all these fears at once, we implemented the micro-win strategy. We identified her very first micro-win, spending just 20 minutes researching domain name availability for her potential business. Not purchasing anything, not making any commitments, just exploration. After completing the small action, she documented what it demonstrated. I can take practical steps toward my business without the world ending. I have ideas worth exploring. I'm capable of beginning this journey. Her next micro-win was slightly more challenging, having coffee with someone who had successfully started a similar business. Not to pitch anything or ask for help, just to listen and learn. Again, she documented what this win revealed about her. I am the kind of person who connects with successful people. I take initiative to learn what I need to know. I belong in conversations about entrepreneurship. Here's where the magic happened. After accumulating about 15 of these micro-wins over 8 weeks, Sophia experienced what I call the identity tipping point. Rather than seeing herself as someone trying to start a business, she began naturally thinking of herself as an entrepreneur in the early stages. This subtle shift might seem semantic, but it fundamentally altered how she approached every subsequent challenge. What's particularly fascinating is how micro-wins create a snowball effect. When Sophia began, it took significant courage to complete even the smallest actions. But with each documented win, her threshold for what felt achievable expanded. 6 months later, she was confidently pitching to potential clients and had secured her first 3 contracts, actions that would have seemed impossibly frightening at the beginning. The power of micro-wins lies in their ability to bypass your rational mind's objections. Your doubt might argue convincingly against taking a major leap, but it struggles to generate reasonable objections to these small, specific actions. And yet, Each completed micro-win delivers a disproportionately powerful blow to your limiting beliefs. For example, if you doubt your ability to speak publicly, a micro-win might be sharing a thought in a small group meeting. If you doubt your creativity, it might be spending 15 minutes brainstorming without judging your ideas. If you doubt your athletic ability, it might be completing a 10-minute workout. Each micro-win serves as a data point against your self-doubt, creating cracks in the foundation of your limiting beliefs. Over time, these small actions accumulate, eventually reaching a tipping point where your unconscious mind must update its programming to accommodate the new evidence. The documentation method. Here's where most people miss a critical opportunity. They fail to consciously register their wins in a way that maximizes impact on the unconscious mind. Your brain has a negativity bias, meaning it naturally gives more weight to negative experiences than positive ones. To counteract this, you need to deliberately amplify the impact of your successes through what I call the documentation method. This involves 3 steps. 1. Capture your wins, both large and small, in written form. 2. Elaborate on what each win demonstrates about you. 3. Regularly review this evidence to reinforce new beliefs. For instance, after completing a micro-win, you might write, "Today I spoke up in the team meeting, even though I felt nervous. This shows I can act confidently even when feeling doubt. It demonstrates that I value my ideas enough to share them, and that I'm becoming the kind of person who contributes meaningfully to discussions." This detailed articulation transforms a simple action into compelling evidence against your self-doubt. When reviewed regularly, these documented wins become a powerful counterforce to years of negative programming. The feedback filter. While taking action and documenting wins is essential, equally important is how you interpret the feedback you receive. People with persistent self-doubt typically have a distorted feedback filter. They magnify negative feedback, minimize positive feedback, and interpret neutral situations negatively. Rewiring this filter involves 3 practices. 1. Consciously seek and absorb positive feedback. When someone compliments your work or acknowledges your contribution, resist the urge to deflect or dismiss it. Instead, take a moment to fully receive it, perhaps even writing it down later as part of your documentation method. 2. Bring skepticism to negative feedback. Rather than automatically accepting criticism as truth, evaluate it objectively. Is it specific and actionable, or vague and personal? Is it coming from someone whose opinion you value? Does it align with other feedback you've received? Remember that not all criticism is accurate. Sometimes it says more about the giver than the receiver. 3. Reframe neutral outcomes as learning opportunities. Not everything will go as planned, but neutral outcomes aren't failures, they're information. Train yourself to ask, what can I learn from this? Rather than, what does this say about me? This subtle shift transforms potential doubt triggers into growth opportunities. By consciously managing how you interpret feedback, you prevent new experiences from reinforcing old patterns of self-doubt. You're listening to How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever. The Power of Your Unconscious Mind by Listen. Grow Sleep. Let's continue our journey toward unshakable confidence and self-belief. Chapter 7. Integration and Implementation. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground, from understanding how self-doubt gets programmed into your unconscious mind to specific techniques for reprogramming confidence. Now it's time to integrate these insights into a practical implementation plan. The 30-day doubt detox. Transformation happens through consistent action, not occasional effort. The 30-day doubt detox provides a structured approach to implementing the strategies we've discussed. Each day builds on the previous one, creating momentum that makes lasting change possible. Here's what the 30-day doubt detox looks like. Days 1 to 10. Environmental reset. During the first 10 days, focus on shift number 1, stop putting the wrong things in, and shift number 2, start putting the right things in. This includes conducting a thorough media audit, What news, social media, entertainment, and other content are you consuming daily? Eliminating or significantly reducing sources that trigger or reinforce self-doubt. Creating a daily confidence curriculum of books, podcasts, videos, or conversations that strengthen self-belief. Beginning to notice the impact of different people on your confidence levels. Setting initial boundaries with individuals who consistently feed your self-doubt. Let me make this concrete with a day-by-day breakdown of your first 3 days. Day 1. Media detox. Begin by cataloguing every digital platform you engage with daily, for each one rated on a scale of 1 to 10 for how it affects your confidence. Anything scoring below a 5 gets either eliminated or time restricted. Install app timers on your phone for platforms you can't completely eliminate. Many clients are shocked to discover just how much toxic content they're consuming. One executive I worked with realized he was spending nearly 2 hours daily on platforms that consistently made him feel inadequate. When he reduced this to 20 minutes, he reported feeling mentally lighter within just 3 days. Day 2. Environment upgrade. Identify one physical space you spend significant time in daily. Redesign this space to reinforce confidence rather than doubt. This might mean rearranging furniture for better energy flow, adding plants or natural elements, displaying visible reminders of past achievements, or incorporating colours that evoke positive emotions for you. Remember the powerful effect of even subtle environmental cues. A university study found that students performed 61% better on creative tasks when their workspace contained inspirational images versus neutral decorations. Day 3. Relationship assessment. Make a list of the 5 people you interact with most frequently. For each person, note whether they predominantly reinforce your confidence or your doubts. For those who feed your self-doubt, develop a specific strategy, whether it's limiting time together, changing conversation topics when they become negative, or having a direct conversation about the kind of support you need. One client used what she called the confidence timer. She would literally set a timer when interacting with her highly critical mother. This simple boundary helped her maintain connection while protecting her mental environment. Days 11 to 20, reprogramming rituals. During the second 10 days, implement the reprogramming techniques from Chapter 5. Practice the spotlight technique daily, consciously redirecting thoughts from what you don't want to what you do want. Begin the identity upgrade by consciously changing how you describe yourself to others and in your own self-talk. Develop your personal certainty anchor and practice activating it in progressively more challenging situations. Conduct daily reality rehearsals for upcoming situations that might typically trigger doubt. Here's a deeper look at implementing these during days 11 through 13. Day 11. Spotlight installation. Begin your day by identifying 3 common self-doubt thoughts. For each one, create a specific replacement thought that focuses on what you want rather than what you don't want. Write these on index cards or in a note on your phone. Set reminders to appear at intervals throughout the day, prompting you to check in with your thinking and redirect your spotlight if needed. For example, replace "I hope I don't freeze up during my presentation" with "I communicate with clarity and confidence." The key is consistency, catching and redirecting these thoughts dozens of times until the new pattern becomes automatic. Day 12. Identity declaration. Draft your new identity statement, a paragraph that describes who you're becoming. Begin each sentence with "I am," and focus on the qualities of confidence you're developing. Record this statement in your own voice, with conviction and emotion. Listen to this recording first thing in the morning and just before bed, when your mind is most receptive to new programming. The power of identity-based change is remarkable. A study of recovering addicts found that those who shifted from saying "I'm trying to quit" to "I'm not a smoker" were 273% more likely to remain abstinent after 6 months. Day 13. Certainty anchor development. Spend 15 minutes today developing your certainty anchor. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. Recall a time when you felt absolute certainty, perhaps mastering a skill, knowing an answer, or feeling completely right about a decision. As you fully re-experience this state, create your physical anchor, touching fingers together, pressing a point on your wrist, etc. Practice activating this anchor at least 20 times throughout the day, each time recalling that feeling of absolute certainty. Think of this as creating a neurological shortcut to confidence that you can activate instantly when needed. Days 21 to 30. Feedback revolution. In the final 10 days, implement the strategies from Chapter 6. Identify and complete at least one micro-win daily, gradually increasing the challenge level. Establish a documentation method that works for you, whether it's a journal, voice memos, or a digital document. Record each win and what it demonstrates about your capabilities. Practice consciously filtering feedback, fully absorbing positive input while bringing healthy skepticism to negative input. Let's enhance your implementation of these final days. Day 21. Micro-win design. Create a micro-win menu, a list of small specific actions that push just beyond your comfort zone in areas where self-doubt typically appears. Categorize these by difficulty level, from slightly challenging to moderately stretching. Begin with the easiest wins, building momentum before tackling more challenging actions. Your micro-wins should be specific enough to know exactly when you've completed them, achievable within a single day, and meaningful enough to challenge your limiting beliefs. For instance, if you doubt your creative abilities, a good micro-win might be write one page of creative content without editing or judging it. Day 22. Documentation system. Establish your personal documentation system. This should include 3 elements: capture, how you'll record wins; elaboration, how you'll extract meaning from them; and review, how you'll regularly revisit them. The most effective systems make documentation frictionless. One client used voice memos while commuting, another kept a small notebook in her pocket, and a third used a dedicated app with preset question prompts. The key is finding what works for your lifestyle so that documentation becomes automatic rather than another task to complete. Day 23. Feedback recalibration. Begin consciously managing your relationship with feedback. Create a feedback journal with 3 columns. Positive feedback received, what you learn from it, and how it changes your self-perception. Make an entry each time you receive positive feedback, however small. For negative or critical feedback, develop a quick assessment protocol. Is it specific and actionable? Is it about the work, behavior, or about me personally? Does the source have relevant expertise? This helps you process feedback objectively rather than letting it trigger self-doubt. The integration process. While the 30-day doubt detox provides structure, true transformation comes from integrating these practices until they become automatic. Here's how to ensure that happens. 1. Stack habits. Attach new confidence practices to existing routines. Rather than trying to remember multiple new habits, connect each practice to something you already do daily. For example, practice the spotlight technique while brushing your teeth, or review your documented wins while drinking your morning coffee. 2. Create environmental triggers. Place visual reminders of your new practices where you'll see them regularly. This might be a small symbol of your certainty anchor on your desk, a note about the spotlight technique on your bathroom mirror, or a reminder about the documentation method on your phone. 3. Establish accountability. Share your commitment with someone who will supportively hold you accountable, or join a community of others on a similar journey. The social element dramatically increases follow-through and provides additional sources of feedback and encouragement. 4th, plan for obstacles. Identify potential challenges to implementing these practices and develop specific strategies for overcoming them. What might derail your efforts? What will you do when that happens? Having plans in place prevents temporary setbacks from becoming a permanent abandonment. Advanced integration strategies. For those committed to deep transformation, these additional integration methods can accelerate your progress. Read, Immersion experiences. Consider creating dedicated immersion periods, blocks of time from 1 day to 1 week, where you focus intensively on confidence-building practices. These confidence retreats amplify your results by temporarily removing you from environments that reinforce doubt and creating space for concentrated reprogramming. One client scheduled a quarterly confidence weekend where she would disconnect from regular routines, immerse herself in inspiring content, practice her reprogramming techniques intensively, and plan her next 90 days of implementation. These regular resets kept her momentum strong and provided space for deeper integration. Sensory integration. Enhance your programming by engaging multiple senses simultaneously. Create a confidence playlist of music that evokes feelings of power and capability. Select specific scents, perhaps an essential oil or cologne, that you use only when practicing confidence techniques, creating an anchored association. Consider specific clothing or accessories that serve as physical reminders of your new identity. This multisensory approach leverages what neuroscientists call state-dependent memory, the phenomenon where recall improves when your physiological state matches the state in which learning occurred. By engaging multiple senses, you create a more robust network of associations supporting your new confident identity. The as-if framework. One of the most powerful integration methods is what psychologists call embodied cognition, the understanding that your physical state influences your mental state and vice versa. Begin consciously adopting the physiology of confidence in everyday situations. This means standing and sitting with expansive posture rather than contracted, speaking at a measured pace with appropriate volume, making comfortable eye contact rather than looking down or away, moving deliberately rather than hurriedly or hesitantly. The research is clear. Adopting confident physiology for even 2 minutes increases testosterone, the confidence hormone, and decreases cortisol, the stress hormone. Your body doesn't just express your mental state, it helps create it. Overcoming implementation challenges. Even with the best intentions and strategies, you'll likely encounter challenges in implementing these practices. Let's address the most common obstacles and how to overcome them. The consistency challenge. Many people start strong, but struggle to maintain consistent practice. To overcome this, use the never miss twice rule. If you miss a day of practice, never allow yourself to miss 2 consecutive days. Reduce scope rather than giving up completely. If you don't have time for your full practice, do a 2-minute version instead. Track your consistency visually with a calendar or app to leverage the motivating power of unbroken chains. Create meaningful rewards for milestone consistency, e.g. 1 week, 1 month. The social environment challenge. Your social circle may unconsciously resist your transformation as your confidence disrupts established relationship dynamics. To manage this, prepare specific responses for those who question your changes. Find at least one confidence ally who fully supports your transformation. Gradually introduce your changes rather than announcing a dramatic reinvention. Remember that others' resistance often stems from their own insecurities. The setback recovery challenge. Inevitably, you'll experience moments where old patterns of self-doubt resurface strongly. When this happens, recognize it as a normal part of the rewiring process, not evidence of failure. Implement your doubt emergency protocol, a predetermined set of actions to take when doubt resurges, e.g. reviewing your documentation, activating your certainty anchor, contacting a support person. Analyze the trigger without judgment. What specifically activated the old pattern? Use the setback as valuable data to refine your approach rather than abandoning it. The maintenance protocol. After completing the 30-day doubt detox, you'll need a sustainable approach to maintaining and deepening your transformation. The maintenance protocol includes weekly review. Set aside 15 to 30 minutes each week to review your wins from the past week. Identify areas where old patterns of self-doubt might be re-emerging. Adjust your environment if needed. Plan specific micro-wins for the coming week. Make this weekly review sacred and non-negotiable. Schedule it at the same time each week, creating a ritual that signals to your unconscious mind that this is important. Many clients find Sunday evenings or Monday mornings ideal for this practice, as it either closes one week or frames the next. The most effective weekly reviews include both reflection and planning. Begin by celebrating wins, however small. Then honestly, assess where doubt may be creeping back in. Finally, set specific intentions and plans for the coming week. This rhythm of reflection and intention setting keeps your confidence building momentum moving forward. Monthly deepening. Dedicate 1 to 2 hours each month to evaluate your progress using specific metrics you've defined. Review your documented wins from the entire month. Refine your techniques based on what's working best for you. Set more challenging micro-wins to continue expanding your comfort zone. Your monthly review is where deeper learning and recalibration happens. One powerful practice is creating a confidence map, a visual representation of areas where your confidence has grown and areas that still need attention. This might be a mind map, a chart, or any visual format that helps you see patterns in your progress. Use this monthly checkpoint to also update your confidence curriculum, the books, podcasts, courses, or other resources you're using to reinforce positive programming. Fresh input prevents your growth from plateauing and introduces new perspectives that can accelerate your transformation. Quarterly reinvention. Every 3 months, conduct a more comprehensive review. Reassess your environment for new sources of negative programming. Update your confidence curriculum with fresh resources. Consider working with a coach or mentor to address any persistent areas of doubt. Celebrate your progress and acknowledge how far you've come. The quarterly review is where you zoom out for a broader perspective. How has your life changed since beginning this journey? What opportunities are now available that weren't before? What parts of your old identity have you outgrown? And what new aspects of yourself are emerging? This is also the ideal time to practice preemptive programming, anticipating upcoming challenges or opportunities and preparing your mind in advance. For instance, if you know you'll be taking on new responsibilities at work in the coming quarter, you can specifically focus your confidence-building practices on leadership or decision-making. The power of community support. While much of the work of eliminating self-doubt happens internally, the support of a like-minded community can dramatically accelerate your transformation. Consider these approaches to harnessing the power of community. Transformation partners. Find at least one person committed to similar growth work. Meet regularly, weekly or bi-weekly, to share wins, discuss challenges, and hold each other accountable. The ideal transformation partner is someone who takes their own growth seriously, can celebrate your successes without jealousy, offers honest feedback without judgment, holds you to your commitments without criticism. Confidence circles. Consider forming or joining a small group, 3 to 7 people, specifically focused on building confidence and eliminating self-doubt. These confidence circles provide a safe space to practice new behaviors, receive authentic feedback, and witness others' transformations, which reinforces the possibility of your own. Structure these meetings with specific sharing prompts, such as, one way my confidence has grown this week is, a situation where I felt self-doubt but acted anyway was, something I'm doing differently now that I couldn't have done before is. Digital communities. Online groups can provide ongoing support between in-person meetings. Look for communities focused on personal development, mindset work, or specific areas where you're building confidence. Actively contribute rather than just consuming. The act of supporting others' growth reinforces your own transformation. Public commitment. Consider making a public declaration of your journey. This might be sharing your goals with friends, posting about your progress on social media, or even starting a blog or podcast documenting your transformation. Public commitment creates external accountability and often connects you with others on similar paths. Remember, eliminating self-doubt isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. But unlike temporary confidence-boosting techniques, the approach we've outlined addresses the root causes in your unconscious mind. This means that over time, maintaining confidence requires less conscious effort as your new programming becomes your default state. You've been listening to How to Eliminate Self-Doubt Forever. The Power of Your Unconscious Mind by Listen. Grow Sleep. Thank you for your attention, and remember, your confidence isn't just your future, it's your legacy.